Hello and welcome back. In this tutorial we're going to talk about anonymous classes. So anonymous classes are basically a way of either extending a class or implementing an interface in such a way that you can do it kind of a one-time thing, as you'll see in the examples that we will use in this lecture. So let's start by creating here a class which will act as a parent class. I'm going to call it computer. Let's give it a random method in here. Let's say public void shutdown. And I'm gonna add a sysout statement that says computer is shutting down. So I've created just a simple class with a single method. And here I'm gonna create an object of that class. I'm gonna say computer1 equals new computer. And of course I can run the shutdown method by saying computer1 dot shutdown. And if I run this, of course it's gonna say computer is shutting down. And now the way that anonymous classes work, for example, let's say I want to override this shutdown method in a computer class. And the normal way to do it is, of course, for example, creating another class, let's say MacBook, and extending computer class and then overriding the shutdown method. But I can also do it, for example, by opening curly parentheses in here. And this is a bit of a surprise for people who have not seen anonymous classes before, I think. And within the curly braces, I can override the methods in computer class. And the annotation to make sure that the method is overridden, as we've seen in the previous lectures, is at override. And here we're going to override the public void shutdown method. And here I can add another implementation. For example, let's say MacBook is shutting down. And now if we save this and run it, it's gonna say MacBook is shutting down, because we are overriding the shutdown method in our parent class. So this might be a bit confusing, because you may ask, what class is this if it's not the computer class? Because it takes two classes, the superclass and the child class, or the subclass, to override a method. And the class of this variable, or the type of this variable, is computer. However, the object that the computer1 is pointing at is some kind of subclass of computer class which doesn't have a name. Therefore, it's called anonymous class. And with anonymous classes, there is no way that you can create a new object of that class. But this comes very handy if you want to use a different subclass from an existing class. You can use anonymous class syntax like this. Another example of anonymous classes could be, for example, if we create here an interface, let's say phone. And I'm gonna give it a method, public void, for example, call. And as we've mentioned in the previous lecture, the method in the interface won't take curly braces at the end, so we're just gonna leave a semicolon in here. And to implement this interface, normally I would create a class that implements phone, and I would be forced to implement the call method. But another way to do this could be using anonymous classes syntax. I'm gonna create here phone. Let's say phone1 equals to new phone. Now if we leave this like this, it ain't gonna work, because it's gonna say cannot instantiate the type phone. And again, we mentioned in the previous lecture that interfaces cannot be instantiated. And instantiate basically means create a new object from the interface phone in this case. and you can't instantiate the interfaces because there is no code in the methods that you could put into the objects. So this statement in itself is not legal unless I add the curly braces and add an anonymous class. And the easiest way to add unimplemented methods of an interface is by clicking this arrow right here and clicking Add Unimplemented Methods. So again, you'll see the @override annotation, which makes sure that the call method is actually overridden from phone interface. And we're gonna get rid of it as it is optional. We're gonna get rid of this comment as well. I'm gonna add a sysout statement in this overridden method, and I'm gonna say just simply calling. And I'm gonna use this phone variable, phone1, to call the overridden method of the anonymous class that we've created, which actually implements the phone interface. And again, if I say this and run it, it's gonna add calling, which is outputted due to this call. So for now, that's it for anonymous classes. You will find the code in the resources section to practice on your own. You're still gonna see anonymous classes examples in future lectures, and I'm sure you're gonna gradually understand it because it might be a confusing topic for beginners in Java. So I'll see you then.